Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your host, Matt, Steve, and Jeff. G'day, guys.
G'day.
Mate, how are
Back
you?
into the swing of things. I've been busy doing work while you guys have been lollygagging.
Adult
and
lollygagging.
regularly gagging.
Yeah.
But we're
And what
going to
was
be
the second
talking
one?
about
What type of gagging?
just regular gagging.
Oh.
Yeah. That's off the penguins of Madagascar. I'm sorry, all of my quotes used to be cool, but now I have
All the
young
kids'
children. They all
movies,
come
yeah.
from like Bluey and
I get 'em.
you know, penguins of Madagascar and all that sort of stuff.
Bluey's
So,
brilliant. Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom and
Yeah,
Bluey.
right.
They're probably my favourites.
yeah, they're pretty good. So we're going to be talking about. We were going to use another acronym, but we've worked out it probably could be trademarked. So we're going to be talking about pestilent past.
Pestilent
no,
past?
is it pestilent past? What are we going to call it?
That's much better, actually. You just thought of that right then.
I did.
What were we going to do? Perverted or
Perverted
pathetic?
past.
And
Yeah, all that sort of stuff.
we tried to.
But
We
it-
felt obligated to use a P word.
It's going to be along the same lines of the Convenient Lie podcast, which is also a nice narrative switch on, you know, what's out there. And again, guys, I highly recommend. Where you see a lot of our humour come from is from, you know,
Fear.
awesome, the awesome Orson Welles and things like 1984, where whatever narrative that you want, or that if you're trying to do something subversive, like the Ministry for Peace was just the army, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and in everyday society, especially when you've got organisations putting up grandiose titles, flip 100% what it's saying, and that's probably closer to what it actually is.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why I like a convenient lie.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of it going on. It's been going on for ages, and it's very easy with the media and that sort of stuff to, you know, manipulate the world and that sort of stuff. But it's so easy to just kind of get weird ideas that just flow through so easy. So a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today is like just strange ideas that kind of got started, and then through various forms of confirmation bias were kind of propagated and continued.
That's a good word.
You
Look,
know?
guys, I mean, again, you know where I come from. I'm the ultimate
yeah.
conspiracy theorist, which is fun. And I have a lot of
Yeah.
fun with people in the office as well, too. And we've mentioned it before, from, you know, one of the Beatles getting whacked and actually being replaced with the double. I mean, which is
Yeah.
kind of fun. Through to the flat earth, again, too, which is kind of fun as well, too. But in amongst that as well, too, don't forget, there's been a lot of conspiracy theories, like Watergate and things like that as well, too, that have actually turned out to become, you know, conspiracy fact, which is conspiracy is when you have a group of people, I think it's more than 5, I think is the true definition, which actually conspire to do something, subvert the course of justice, and actually, you know, what have you. So when you hear the word conspiracy, it's been so changed in our lexicon now through social media, through again, a very small group of individuals that have created a narrative to effectively question nothing. Now, we say question absolutely bloody everything. And everything that you hear is not necessarily going to be true, but it's worthwhile investigating and determining truth for yourself, not being spoon-fed truth by a few billionaires that effectively, you know, take control of most of social media.
Yeah.
The mainstream media, which is owned only by a handful of people now, right at the very top, they have the ability to really allow information to come out that suits what narrative that they want. And I highly recommend going out and actually having a look at what we accept as fact and the sources that we receive it from. One of the things I could never understand is why so many people are... and I'm not even going to get into it because I don't want it to become about a certain idea, but why so many people are anti one particular person or president or whatever it may be, and all of the supporting narratives, you know, supports that 100% completely, and everything that you see feeds and supports that narrative.
Yeah.
Do you have a question to go, why is that?
Yeah.
Do you?
Well, I do.
Well, I do now.
Trump questioned it today.
Yeah.
He tweeted out saying that Twitter better pull their socks up, and this is he tweeted it out, so it's not
Yeah.
secret. And he said,
Isn't that ironic? Is that irony?
That's irony.
Oh, man, I
Today,
learned something
this
in our
morning, or
Iron
last night, he
podcast.
tweeted out saying that they've got to pull their act up.
Yeah.
We're going to regulate you heavily, or words to that effect.
Well, what's
Yeah,
interesting, though, is that in terms of that, he came out and made a statement. I can't remember exactly what it was. And what was interesting for the first time ever is that whether you like him or whether you don't is irrelevant. But he said something. Now, Steve, Voltaire, what does he say?
Well, he basically says that I disagree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it.
And this is the important. So we're not telling you to think one way or another. We're saying at least have free thought and have conversations and discussions, not arguments. Because if it comes down to an argument, you know, there's this Russian guy that I listened to that was talking about how society in America being one of the last bastions of free speech in the world. And this is back in the 70s. And he said, we have already infiltrated your country with looking at your universities and all the rest of it, and effectively looking at socialism as being the great counterbalance to the capitalist greed and all the rest of it. And again, I'm very concerned about the oligarchs and the amount of control that minute, the one percenters, if you like, have over making policy. The old rule is he who has the gold makes the rules, right? And that's disgusting, and I think the world has seen that. Unfortunately, the movement gets hijacked. I mean, we should be working together. We should be having the most amazing, you know, breakthroughs in technology and science and health and arts and all these sorts of things. But yet the world is constantly in turmoil and hate. It's this. I mean, even the way that they changed the borders, you know, the ancient borders after World War II, they deliberately bloody well did it.
Just so to start shit.
Well, yeah, because then they go, well, hang on, that's my land. And they're like, well, this land's been given to me. And, you know, anyway.
1947, yeah.
Absolutely. So anyway, this is, I guess, the bit of the premise of where we're coming from, and some of the strange stuff that's happened in our past now that's probably gone so far that we accept it as being fact, but we want to start uncovering some of that and going, what happened in our past? What was said back then that was accepted as truth that now's said and accepted as complete rubbish or completely forgotten about?
Can I give an example of when we mentioned the confirmation bias and all that sort of stuff, and how there can be an idea that can be spread around, and that everyone can believe it because they're kind of confirming it every day from that perspective, because a lot of it's just perspective. So for example, before they understood germs, before they understood how infections were spread, they had a theory of miasma. Not miasma, I need a puffer, but miasma, which is is a vapor. So the smell, and you knew if there was toxins or infectious organisms in the pollution and in the air if it smelt bad. Okay, so what they did then is this whole theory that in the night air, where most of the smells were the worst at night, they thought that the night air is what makes you sick. So they'd all go in, as soon as the night air, they'd lock themselves inside, with all their smoke and their fires and all that sort of stuff to try to keep away from the night air that was going to make them sick.
Yeah, right.
But then what they said, it's the smell. And so if you can eradicate the smell, you can eradicate the bugs. And they believe...
Is this the posy and all that?
So, so what happened then is, so for example, during the plague doctors and that sort of stuff, they had these big long masks. The end of the mask, they'd stuff them with essential oils, which would stop the smell getting through.
Right.
And therefore, when those people didn't get sick, they said, by blocking the smell has actually blocked the infection. But no, there was other antimicrobial.
Causation.
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
there's a correlation and causation. London, they had a phase called the Great Stink. And what happened in there was a big long period of time that was building up where Steve-O was eating beans.
I was just about to say, I've gone into Steve's room before.
I could see you two looking at each other.
There's the great stink.
And we know Steve stinks, and we know he's so old. He was possibly at the River Thames or Thames. How do you say River Thames?
I like Thames.
I was going to throw that straight to Elisma if she was here. How do you say that? Because she would come up a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
Thames. So anyway, that big bloody stinky river, they had years and years and years. They had a sewage system that basically just dumped all their sewage into the river, and then it just coated the banks of the river, and it was smelling more and more. So then some engineer dude went through and built a proper sewage system and moved the sewage further away. So they can't smell it. And when the vapor went, the smell went, everyone stopped getting cholera and all these other diseases and polios and all that sort of stuff by correcting the hygiene. So the association that the smell's gone, and when the smell's gone, we're not getting sick, confirmed their bias, because they did not yet at that time have the technology to understand germs and microscopic stuff that are affecting through contact. So then what they did is they found out that cleaning things was also doing. So they were sterilizing things to kill the germs, but confirming the loss of smell was what was actually doing it. So it's kind of That's crazy how those sort of things happen.
The problem with that with surgery in the early days, the surgeon used to go from table to table covered in blood.
Yeah.
And treat this person, the hands and everything, and then go to the next person with blood all over him. Actually, a lot of women were surgeons back then. The doctors, or the women weren't allowed to be doctors, but they were allowed to be surgeons up until the 1700s when they were kicked out, women altogether, because they had medical schools. But surgeons were often women in the early days.
Wow.
Surgery has got a terrible history with bugs and all that sort of stuff too. There's some funny things.
Anything relating to smell? Was any of that they do? So they wash
the surgeons used to carry canes around, and they used to have essential oils in the handles, and they put. You see them put the cane up to their face. You see them in the old movies,
I have,
and that's to get rid of the bad ether that you speak about.
Because that was the thing with myrrh as well. So the burning of the myrrh, they didn't understand it was antimicrobial, but they knew it eradicated the foul smell and replaced it with another smell, and they felt that would act. That's why it was stopping the infections.
And remember, blood doesn't smell.
fragrance.
It smells, but it doesn't smell sick. So you don't get infections from other people's blood. So you can share blood around, no problem at all.
Yeah,
so there was no problem with that.
I see.
So it's very interesting. I mean,
That
you
is
know,
interesting.
the earliest surgeries were when they used to drill holes in people's heads to get rid of their headaches.
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I have heard that.
Well, if your head is full of evil spirits, which was in Egypt was the predominant thing, you used to drill holes to let the spirits out.
Kind of makes sense. It would actually reduce the pressure in your head. Because, I mean, what causes the headache is your brain's a certain size, your skull's a certain size, and everything throbs in between.
There's a hormone release called, this is going to present, we didn't know back then, but calcitonin gene-related peptide, which causes vasodilation.
Yeah.
And nowadays you use triptans, which activate the serotonergic 1B receptor, which cause vasoconstriction in the head and downregulate calcitonin gene-related peptide.
Yeah.
So the other way is to drill a hole in your head.
So that
sounds
coffee?
easier than
The
what
coffee
that other
headache?
stuff you're
A lot of
saying.
people get a coffee headache. If they don't get a coffee, like Tony, for example, if she doesn't get a coffee early enough in the morning, she'll suffer from a headache.
And that's actually opposite. So coffee's a vasodilator.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the body goes, hey, where's my coffee? And the coffee's not there vasodilating, so it goes, right, start throbbing those arteries.
The other thing is, of course, caffeine, it depends how much caffeine's in there, is a vasoconstrictor. Remember, you use caffeine and adrenaline to stop blood flow. Like when they give you the injections to stop drill teeth, adrenaline's in there to stop the constriction. Also, she could be addicted to caffeine.
No, it's not that. It's actually to do, I think, with the
caffeine.
the actual caffeine helping with the
very much
nitric oxide.
And you got to remember that even in paracetamol, you'll find caffeine these days in your supermarket.
Yeah.
Because it's a painkiller.
Yeah, wild, eh?
Yeah.
So that's what, with the caffeine, just what we're talking about, just so, because I said it was a vasodilator, you said it was vasoconstrictor.
Well, caffeine,
so what happens
adrenaline.
is you get the large arteries that feed the blood to the brain to make you think, and into your organs and to muscles and everything dilate so you can run and that sort of stuff. And the small ones constrict so you don't bleed to death in case of injury.
It's fascinating.
It's kind of cool, man.
It just re-channels the blood around.
Yeah.
But drilling a hole in the head, there's a dude who they found a skull with 52 holes in it. Now, why didn't that kill them? It's because when they found the skull, you can see some healing marks. Right. So the skull had started growing back. So they survived the surgery.
That's wild, eh?
This is back, Egyptian days.
Yeah.
So there's pictures of, I've got pictures here, I don't know whether I should show them, of holy skulls.
That's crazy,
Yeah,
They must have had some hygiene, microbial sort of processes so they didn't die.
Maybe they could have just got lucky.
They used to cauterize the wounds. Now, do you want to know how they did that?
Yes.
They got the coals out of the fire and on your head. And that's how they
cool.
did it. Now, for those who do YouTube and all that sort of stuff, here's a picture of a holy skull with holes in it, and you can see, if you look very closely, the healing marks on it too.
Wow.
Cameraman's going, ooh. So not very good. If you want to know a better way to treat a headache, it's on the other side, and you can describe that picture, guys, for the people who are
I'm
listening.
sure that would help. So that's a guy basically on an anvil with a brass pot on his head, bent over, and a guy with a sledgehammer about to dong it.
Yep.
Like I can imagine if I've got a headache, that's probably exactly what I'm
I
thinking.
think that's probably the early parts of homeopathy.
Right.
It's
Like treats like.
Yeah, like treats like. So you got a bit of a sore head, let's make it hurt more. That'll stop you whinging
Well,
anyway.
certainly everything back in the good old days wasn't necessarily good.
But another confirmation bias that occurs through medicine is, statistically, when people stop coming back, they'll often say, their headache's gone because they haven't been back for another treatment. No, take it as a win.
just didn't want his head smashed in with a bloody kettle on his head and a hammer smacking him.
I mean, some of these things probably had some, and this is going to sound awful, but benefit in some way. It did something, whether it released adrenaline, which took their mind off the headache, or the drilling of the hole had more pain here than the actual headache, or something happened that summary
Maybe that
which
was
gave
just
you that.
a bogus picture, Steve. I
could've
mean,
been
it's possible that bloke had a pot stuck on his head,
Oh, God,
and
God,
old
yeah,
mate
but-
and all them people around were just trying to help.
Yeah, so it looks,
Like
it's terrible.
You might have
isn't it?
confirmation bias, Steve.
Confirmation bias. I got it out of medical journal. Weirdly, I got a lot of this stuff out of medical journals. But this
Oh,
is another
must be true.
a great pain treatment. What do you reckon?
Heroin.
Heroin.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah, that'll
Wow.
get you
It's a
going.
picture of a bottle of with pure heroin in it. That would help your headache. And you got to remember,
bet.
back in the early days, if you took the heroin, you would feel better.
But you'd
Oh,
come back
bet
for
you did.
more.
And you'd go, well, this has cured my headache. Thank you
Yeah.
very, very much. And you'd run off.
Well,
Same
this
as
is all
all
the
the-
opium clinics, especially that the Chinese had, but then it
Yep.
was obviously worked out that it was a form of control. So
Yeah.
they could then obviously utilise that to enslave people through the opioid clinics. It would
Yeah.
remove their will. The funny thing about human history is that realistically, and again, when you get right up to the very top, it is all about controlling others to do your will.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that you don't get found out and pulled off your ivory tower by the group of other masses. The old saying, remember that guy that we met around business? And he said, in business, there's going to be screwing. You got to decide whether you want to be the one getting screwed or the one screwing someone else. And I thought, you're an evil... And he turned out to be an evil bastard,
Was that
right?
the same one that was genuinely offended when he asked you what's more important, love or money?
No,
and you
that was
accidentally
another
said
one.
love?
No.
And he's just got, wrong answer.
Oh,
Like, what?
This is what people will do: is they will screw other people. They don't care. Some people love money so much that they are prepared to do anything to get it, and will do virtually anything to control it. And this is a low, sort of small, lobby sort of a person. So, and I'm not saying that all millionaires or billionaires are bad, but I mean certainly I think in terms of, you know, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, as they say.
Awful.
So,
It is, isn't it?
yeah, it is horrible.
It's horrible.
Anyway, sorry, I digress. So I just thought it was an interesting story about
is an
talking
interesting
about,
story.
you know, what people will do to other people to get to maintain a dominant position. So
It's
There's a lot of
insane,
weird
isn't it?
people around. Like, you know, most of us think that, you know, you've got a conscience and you feel bad about stuff and you wouldn't do things that are really evil. But that's just some of us. There are people out there that don't have that type in their
sociopaths.
body.
So, and there are lots of
Sociopaths,
high-functioning sociopaths, and a sociopath is not a psychopath.
No.
A psychopath is someone that will literally, and they might even stab you. But I mean, like in terms of sociopaths, they understand right and wrong, but they don't have empathy.
No.
They can understand social situations and how they should act, but they don't actually have that. So they will crush people.
So we
if it
shouldn't
suits their
assume.
agenda.
And
We
they'll
shouldn't
sleep well at
assume
night.
people
Yeah.
won't do horrible things just because we wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like you got to understand the fact that and you can't say I don't believe that is possible because in your belief system it's not possible. Just understand that other people have got totally different belief systems where anything is possible, as such as the love of a combination of numbers over the love of like
money
energetic
over, yeah.
interactions.
Well, I mean,
you know what I mean?
you
Like,
said
that's
that with
fucking messed up.
Halliburton, who's the richest dude that for a while, and he had his first wife who wanted to give all the money away.
The diamond dude.
No.
No.
You know, in the US, very, very wealthy, owns Halliburton. Come on.
Fuck, fine, Google it.
And he was married, and she
Yeah.
wanted to just give lots of money away, and all he
Oh,
wanted to do
no,
was
yeah, Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett.
Oh, Warren Buffett, right.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was the richest dude in the world, and his wife was the most charitable person and had all of these charities going, wanted to save the world. And she left him because he refused to give any money to the charities because he wanted to win the numbers game.
He wasn't interested so much in the money per se.
He
It was
didn't want
about.
it.
it's
Oh, he's
about-
got billions.
But didn't she die? Didn't she die?
I don't know.
You were telling me the story. Anyway,
Yeah.
it was really
I watched
quite
this.
sad.
I watched this documentary. A lot of inspiring documentaries really freak me out. Like when I watch these, the making of Warren Buffett. Everyone's like, oh yeah, this is, and then you know people getting inspired by the Stephen Jobs stuff and that sort of stuff. And I'm
Ray
like,
Kroc.
I said that
Did you
seems
watch
quite
that?
mean.
Oh, yeah.
Did you
know?
watch the McDonald's one?
Yeah.
Oh
the
my
founder.
gosh, it's like
The founder one.
Oh, I
Yeah.
will screw you and the brothers
Yeah.
that he screwed over
Yeah,
for that as well too.
1.3 million each.
Yeah.
Wow.
1.3.
And they were supposed to have had some royalty agreement.
Yeah,
and he said,
1%.
"Oh, look, sorry, I can't
Yeah.
quite do." And then sleep well at night,
Yeah.
no problem. Left his
Yeah,
wife,
no
checked
problem.
up with some other
Yeah.
chick.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
like, gosh, I just couldn't ever imagine that.
Yeah, yeah.
Ray Kroc
And
was,
then
was
yeah.
a crook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'd say,
Crook.
I don't want to defame him. He's passed away, but he was ruthless.
Well, I think
is
people
what
can
they
watch
say.
the
Yeah.
movie now. Again,
Yeah.
check that against a movie being in terms of
Yeah.
history, but
Factual.
from what I can see, it's just relatively factual.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, there might have been a little bit of license in there, but still.
Well, he didn't care about the health of the individual either, obviously.
Well,
Yeah.
food Anchor's obviously got a really, and that's an indie documentary talking about how they were bathing the meat in ammonia to basically preserve it for longer. And then obviously we talk about as naturopaths in the Natural Society, what's that doing to your gut flora? I mean, there's lots of things that have been done in the name of money and progress that we look at now and just go, wow.
Exactly. So in hindsight, so the point is, there's like a lot of this weird stuff that's going on. In the future, we'll look back in hindsight and go, fuck, we should have seen that. It's pretty bloody... Like, if we go back now and look at history and understand that history repeats itself. Like, I kept... When you guys said the topic was going to be these weird history moments in history and all those history... I just said history 12 times, just because I couldn't think of anything else to say.
Yeah.
But I went straight away thinking about the War of the Worlds for some reason.
Yeah, fantastic.
And so, like, if you consider how easy it is to incite panic... through mainstream media, we basically have in the War of the Worlds. That book was written in 1898.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But 1930, I think. It said it here. I got it here.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking 1938.
You don't make me doubt myself,
was
Steve.
The radio show, but yeah, okay. No,
That's
it's
right.
written.
Yeah.
Well,
what was the date of the radio show, Steve?
1938.
Date, I said.
Was it August the 2nd?
No, I don't remember.
Not even close, mate.
What was it?
Halloween.
Halloween.
Yeah. No, October 30. I'm only.
Yeah.
It's written.
Was it
here.
October
Like, I'm
30?
not. This
Oh,
isn't
okay.
a thing that I know of. I'm reading. Like, I'm seriously. I've circled that and that.
Okay.
And that's about as much as I know about it. So 1898 was when the book was written. But 1938 they decided to read it live on the radio without telling anyone they were reading a book. And then what happened? There was only about 5,000 people tuned into the radio at that time across the whole of America. Yet it incited enough panic where there was actual like big traffic jams. There was people stuck in traffic accidents and potentially deaths. There was suicides and everything like that associated with the panic. They did such a bloody good job. The radio station then just got filled up with all the police and all the authorities. And then what happened after that though was then the newspaper thought, man, we're going to really beat up the story and make this amazing. They then sensationalized the story, made everything sound so much more horrendous and everything. And it kind of... They did the radio show, but then it was the media and the news talking about that thing, that event after it, that amplified the whole thing and created hysteria and hatred against those people and fear and all that sort of stuff.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, interesting. And then what's another interesting thing? Cohen was another dude. I don't know if you remember that in America too. They did a thing with the jocks and the rockers and the mods and all that sort of stuff.
Is that like the
Outsiders
movies
and
Yeah,
that sort of
I
stuff?
remember that.
Have you seen the stars in that? Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry I digress.
Yeah,
Keep going.
but that-
Unbelievable.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I won't mention that. Have a look at the actors in that.
Unbelievable actors.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Tom Cruise, you've got
Patrick Swayze,
Karate Kid guy. You've got Matt. Is it Matt Dillon's in there as well
Matt
too?
Dillon's, I'm trying to think of his name.
To see Thomas
All of them.
Riley.
Yeah.
Just
all of them.
amazing,
Yeah.
amazing actors.
Everyone that ended up in anyone was all in that movie.
Yeah, Outsiders,
but interestingly, that movie was actually done as part of a moral panic theory. So it was done as a social experiment to actually run through a series of scenarios that they could induce hatred within communities. And what the rules
that
are...
keeps coming back, doesn't it?
What are the rules are? That number one rule, someone, something or a group are defined as a threat to social norms or community interests. Number two, the threat is then depicted in a simple and recognisable symbol form by the media.
Yep.
The portrayal of this symbol rouses public concern. There is a response from authorities and policymakers. And the moral panic over the issue results in social changes within the community. And that's the thing. And then what they had, that series of events actually then creates concern, hostility, which is a them versus us, the general consensus. There is moral entrepreneurs and then there are folk devils.
Right.
But the moral entrepreneurs are organised, structured and backed by powers that be, but the folk devils are weak and disorganised and constantly disrupted. The disproportionality, the action taken is disproportional to the actual threat posed by the accused group. And volatility. Moral panics are highly volatile and tend to disappear as quickly as they appeared because public interest wanes or news report change to another narrative.
That
So
sounds
it's like
like
this-
World War II.
It sounds like
a lot.
everything.
It sounds like a
Sounds
lot
like
of
everything.
things. And interesting too, that the concept of moral panic. This is the actual thing that was written back in the 70s. Societies appear to be subject every now and then to periods of moral panic. A condition, episode, person, or group of person emerges to become defined as a threat to societal values and interests. Its nature is presented in a stylized and stereotypical fashion by the mass media. The moral barricades are manned by editors, bishops, politicians, and other right-thinking people. Socially accredited experts pronounce their diagnosis and solutions. Ways of coping are evolved or more often resorted to. The condition then disappears, submerges, or deteriorates and becomes more visible. Sometimes the object of the panic is quite novel, and at other times it is something which has been in existence long enough but suddenly appears in the limelight. Sometimes the panic passes over and is forgotten, except in folklore and collective memory. At other times it has more serious and long-lasting repercussions and might produce such change as those in legal and social policy or even in the way society conceives itself. So that was Stanley Cohen, wrote that back in the 70s, talking about how this kind of moral panic happens. And then we start hearing stories about the guy in the whale.
Yes. Now
Because now we're getting into some weird panic stuff. Everyone goes through. Tell us about that, because I just did a quick.
All right. Well, this is actually an Australian story.
Yeah.
On a beach in Eden, and this is back in the whale hunting days. Now, obviously, there were a lot more whales back then, and some of them ended up beaching themselves, as they still do. And one
Probably
guy
moral panic within the whale community.
That's what,
They heard about the 5G and on the beach.
No, that's it. So, around the turn of the century, this whale ended up beaching itself, and then there's this drunk guy walk along the beach, and he goes and inserts himself in the whale carcass.
John,
Now-
I just called you John because you said something sounding weird.
No,
when you said the guy inserts himself into the whale, I went, John.
Yeah,
Isn't that weird? What a Freudian slip.
whole
Steve-O.
self
Okay, so the bloke, like,
enters the.
wasn't that in the Bible, Jeff?
That was Jonah, but he got
Jonah lived in a
he
whale
got
for 3
no,
days.
he got eaten. He didn't insert himself into the whale.
And then he came out.
Yeah,
the
but this
spout?
guy went.
No, he didn't come out the
No,
spout.
Oh, okay, I can't remember the
Steve-O's
story.
guy didn't insert himself like you. No, he went into. He got eaten. He went
right.
inside the
He-
whale, like
he-
his whole body.
He
Right.
went inside the whale's guts.
Yeah.
Oh,
And was
through
there-
the mouth.
Yeah.
Or through the gut.
Oh,
Anyway,
through the
irrelevant.
wall. Anyway, so he was in there for about 2 hours because he was drunk, and his mates
Couldn't
were
find his
trying to
way
get
out. I
him
could just fucking imagine. That is like, you know, in Australia, how we have these weird estates
Yeah.
with these houses that all look the same.
Yes.
I was so drunk trying to get back to my mate's place once, and I turned up at that estate, and it was just like, every house looked exactly the same. It took me at least 2 hours. I reckon that's what happened to that drunk Aussie inside the whale. He's just like, how the hell do I get out? Is that what
He
happened?
Probably passed out. But his mates tried to get him out of the whale, and then it stunk too much, so they just let him in there. And two hours later, he
Ambergris.
emerged. And he emerged from the whale, and he was sober, and his arthritis improved, but all his rheumatism improved. I know. This is a story. It was published in the news. So after then, of course, everyone thought that was a cure to rheumatism.
Wow.
So they all...
Was it ambergris?
It was what?
I don't know.
What was it that?
Just some drunk guy inside a whale
And
come
this
out
is
feeling
where the whole
great.
story came from. Now, it's probably BS. Like, he probably went in the whale just for a joke, like you do as a young teenage idiot. I probably would have done something similar, being stupid young
You
man.
don't drink, Steve.
No, I've been drunk a couple of times. That I crashed my bike so
In a
badly
while.
once. It was anyway. But anyway, so that was a cure for rheumatism. So everyone would wait along the beach, waiting, or not wait. As soon as a whale came to the beach and it beached itself, people would get inside it to help with their rheumatism. And this is from Eden, New South Wales.
Wow.
And this is an early treatment.
This is
for
great,
rheumatism.
but you can see how people that are opposed to natural medicine would pick out that and go, "See, look at these Fruit Loops." I mean, that's almost like a straw man argument that
Yeah,
they could use.
yeah,
Going,
yeah.
"Oh, if you believe that, you believe the world is flat. Where's
Yeah,
your
well, but
Where's your
then,
tinfoil hat?"
Those same idiots believe that EPA DHA from fish and whale oil is going to make you smarter. And they're the idiots that are beaching themselves and getting inserted by drunk people.
It's bad,
Not so smart.
Yeah.
bad ideas have a
for
long life
rheumatism.
sometimes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that one went for about 30 years. But bad ideas in medicine are plaguing the
Like
whole.
cocaine for the cough mix that's now used as a sinus treatment.
Yeah, cocaine, opioids are
Yeah,
used.
racking it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, in 1972,
Didn't
when
get that
Doug practiced and was a GP, my father-in-law, Dr. Doug,
Oh, Dr.
he used
Doug.
to prescribe opium to kids.
Well, hang on a minute. What do they give? What's Ritalin?
Ritalin, amphetamines,
That's
Well,
the
dexamphetamines.
opposite.
that's
the
much
opposite.
better.
Yeah,
But-
yeah,
but,
yeah.
uh,
But in the future, diddle-diddle. No, what's the noise for the future? Okay. Pew! And now I'm
that's
in the
better.
future. That's my future. From now on, when we talk about future, we go pew
Right.
and doodle doodle is a
do-
pass.
you can
So
do
in
that.
the future, they'll go back. Remember that time when they used to give amphetamines to the kids to slow them down? That was me pretending to be
A doctor.
me in the future doctor. Remember that?
But opium used to work for coughs in kids,
Yeah.
and nowadays they use, of course, morphine or a base derivative like codeine phosphate, which turns into morphine.
Yep.
And that's
It's the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
Same sort of thing.
Yeah, it suppresses the respiratory, it suppresses your cough beautifully.
Yep.
And it's highly addictive and all that, so you don't want a chronic
Yeah,
cough.
yeah, no.
But short term, and this is the
I
common
do. I
prescription.
want a chronic. No, another script of that, and my sinus is playing up.
Can I give you another cough medicine from the old days? Each fluid ounce contains cannabis, chloroform, morphine, ethyl hydrochloride, lobelia.
Throw it in the punch
antimony,
bowl, Steve.
Syruptol and aromatics.
Oh, you've got to put the aromatics
your
in because
cough
that's what
medicine.
sterilises the
Yeah,
bugs,
that's your cough-
remember?
And there's a picture of the old opium, and you can see this picture is not a very old one. It's a fairly modern one,
it
from
is,
the
actually.
70s.
Yeah.
And that's what they used to prescribe, give to kids.
Wow.
Doug used to
great.
be, I
mean,
said
they'd
at
get a
work,
good
he
night's
goes,
sleep.
They were very quiet, and they used to,
Do
And
what they're told.
cocaine in the morning for their tickly
All
throat.
right, kids, up to
and you got to remember opium.
Let's get off to school. Quick, snort your coke.
And I don't know, but opium is where you get morphine from. So this was standardised to morphine.
What was snuff?
That was coke.
Yeah,
that was
I'm
cocaine?
pretty sure that was coke, wasn't
yeah,
it?
that was cocaine.
Yeah.
But
And that's the snuff
Well, that's what
pouch.
they. But that's what
No,
they
no,
used
that
to
one
say.
doesn't work because I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
my scaphoid rotten
Well, I
down
think
that
that's what-
side,
is
but
that
that's
what-
the snuff pouch. That
Is it
little
Oscar
thing
Wilde
there.
wrote that? He goes, "He's no good to anyone too much snuff." I mean, that was, it's like anything,
Yeah,
Well,
too
it's like
much
going
of it.
down to the. I mean, maybe I don't know by 2050. I can't believe you used to be able to go down and get alcohol from a store.
Yeah.
And people used to abuse it and have too much, and they called them alcoholics. But you know, what I mean, like drugs are always going to be part of our society,
cocaine.
and abuse and overuse obviously always causes problems, Matt. Like as you say,
Yeah.
it's the bell curve.
One
Yeah,
of the
exactly.
biggest travesties happened in
As
19...
you say,
As you say.
have some.
Yes, the script.
you talk about snuff and cocaine, and one
don't
of the biggest
usually.
travesties in
Today.
food, and the Food Drug Administration happened in 1906 when they took cocaine out of Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, imagine drinking that, like because you get bottles of it. A
I've
kid
had
could.
6 coffees this morning I wouldn't have had to have if I had cocaine Coca-Cola.
But I've got a treatment for your asthma anyway. It's a sure cure.
My
by the way.
asthma. Are you talking about the smell?
No, this is worse.
I'll just
This
loop
is
that
from-
around. That was like a proper... No, stop everyone. Acknowledge my comedian action there. You know, comedians mention something at the start and then they bring it back like right about now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And
Nice.
just in case she's missed it.
Yeah.
So this is Dr. Batty's cigarettes, by the way, just
Yeah.
for the camera for those who are thinking. But basically, they're cigarettes for the treatment of asthma.
Oh, that's
Brilliant.
fantastic. Now,
Yeah.
did they work?
Of course they work, because it said here it effectively
Menthol.
treats asthma, hay fever, foul breath, all diseases of the throat, all of them, head colds, canker sores, bronchial irritations. But it's not recommended for kids under 6. So you
Right.
have to be, if you're
7.
7.
It's because they
Fine.
burn themselves.
Go for yourself.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
at least there's some sort of safety warning on it, you know.
Did they have menthol in them? Was it the soothing menthol action?
It was actually a menthol cigarette. Dr.
was?
Batty's. Yeah, so there's Dr. Batty's.
Yeah.
Makes
But
sense.
Jeff, I've got another treatment for you too, if you want.
No, John's already offered me that. I'm not interested.
Oh no, well this one's an
for
electric
your depressed
belt.
prostate.
What's that? Sorry.
Do you want an electric belt?
An
that
electric
helps you
belt?
with manhood.
With man what?
Manhood.
Manhood.
Manhood. I
It's
thought he said
Dr.
man
Sanders'
horny.
electric belt for this for weak men. It says.
What?
Look at this.
Hey,
You
look,
need that for disco
I'll
hood,
fight
not
you outside.
manhood.
What are you saying? I'm weak.
Look
Yeah.
at that. I want that. It's for weak men. It's for helping your.
Is that little noose for the
It's
penis?
for what you think it is. I was going to not mention
So
that.
I slip the
Penis?
penis through that and then
Crank it.
Have
Crank
my
it
belt.
up.
Bzz, crank it. Bzz.
Like, what? How did... What?
What?
It goes. Bzz.
What
That's
does?
What happens.
What, Steve?
That's what's supposed to happen.
What?
It's for stimulating your old fella.
You're old fella, Steve. I don't understand.
So I'm
Don't understand.
Explain
it's
better.
supposed to
So-
electric shock my old fella.
Yes,
So
it is.
Steve's got a belt,
A belt, yeah.
like a utility
Well,
belt.
that
It's
sounds-
obviously got some sort of battery packs or something.
Yeah.
It's got a little, literally looks like a noose,
Noose,
doesn't
yeah.
it?
That
Covered
noose
in
wouldn't- that
steel
noose-
wool.
That news wouldn't be big enough.
Oh. Well, not after it's been electrocuted anyway. It's like,
This is, it says here.
Quick,
right-
Madge, into bed.
And I will
I
quote.
just shocked
I'm going to
myself.
shock your electric.
You've got
shut your
nothing to worry
uterus.
about. It's a never failing cure, it says.
No, never
Wow.
failing cure.
Never failing cure.
Not one person's gone back and asked for another one.
It's
For erectile
suffering-
dysfunction.
It's for seminal weakness,
Seminal
loss of
weakness.
weakness, impotency, loss of manhood, even rheumatism.
Excessive
a lame
pubic
back.
hair.
Can
Can
you
you
get
imagine what dirty
rheumatoid
pubic hair? Wouldn't it go?
Can you get rheumatoid arthritis in your old fella?
Stick it in a
So
whale.
there's a bone after
Not
all, I
after you
guess.
stick it in a whale.
Wow. Stick it on a whale.
Inserted into a whale. Previous
get the
comedian loop
rheumatoid-
back.
oh, I
comedian
see.
loop back to the rheumatism of the
Man, I
old
can see we
fella.
can start a new trend here.
Absolutely. I just love it how they were trying to fill in the gaps here and there. They just wanted to cover everything.
I think that's the idea.
That'd
of it.
straighten your
even-
pubes, wouldn't it?
It even helps with sleeplessness. Now, I don't know how shocking your old fella will help with sleeplessness.
Oh man, every night
Well, how
before
does
bed.
that-
Mate,
Put you to
seriously,
sleep.
cure anything. Do you want the belt ticket? No, it's fine. Sorry, fine, perfectly fine. My pubes are straight. My old fella's straight. I'm sleeping well.
It's good for
Like a
poor
My
memory.
uterus is no longer depressed.
Holy
I've got
cow!
a
I've
uterus story,
segued.
though.
Do you hear how many
Yeah,
times I've
that's a great
segued the
segue.
depressed uterus now and your
It's
depressed
even
prostate
for poor
link?
memory and general ill health.
Poor memory,
Oh,
Steve.
you'll remember not to do that again.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, seriously, that's
Is that- how's it? No, yeah, I remember that.
oh god.
Whew. Burning
Oh,
hair.
No, it's terrible. Do you want to talk about uteruses now?
Why not? Why not? Are you going to electrocute it,
Well,
Steve?
I have to take you back. I have to go back to 1900 BC.
And then we can pew back again.
Yeah, okay.
Now, Kanye identifies the
Kanye-
cause of
Kanye West. I thought that's what he was going to say as well too.
I knew it.
He's been time traveling.
No, he's
That's why he's
no,
weird.
He's a
Actually,
lizard
he's
man.
been using the electric
He's a
shock
lizard
belt,
man. He's been
but
here
he's
the
been
whole
putting it on his
time.
this head, not that one. That's why he's a bit strange.
Now,
Oh, that reminds me of a saying. Confucius say, "Man with dick on his head cannot see for nuts.
It's true. It's a very true saying.
They fall into your eyes."
Oh, I'm going to get in
All
trouble
right.
for
So
this.
tell me
but
about your uterus, Steve.
hysteria only happens in women, right?
Of course.
Of course, this is going back
Witlessness,
to
I would prefer to
4,000
call
years
it.
ago. And the reason for that is because their uterine moves all over the place.
They've got a restless
So that-
uterus.
A migrating
moves.
uterus?
Yeah,
Yeah.
migrates.
Wow.
Because you got to remember, when they cut open bodies afterwards, the body was dead and the uterus had just fallen somewhere because there's no muscle tone. So the early days of
on the
looking at a
floor.
woman's uterus,
Like, what do you
No,
mean?
it just moves because there's no, like, it's held in place, but then you die, it sloughs over.
Falls out.
Slops over.
So when they cut these corpses
It's
over,
like how the body loses its soul.
Yeah.
It's like the uterus just.
tone just goes.
Do you talk to your wife like this?
She's a nurse. She loves it.
Oh, really?
She loves it. But there is a treatment anyway. do you want a treatment?
For sloppy
Oh,
uterus.
dude, I need a treatment,
You need a
Steve.
treatment.
I'm freaking out right now.
Melampus suggests that...
Melampus?
and Melampus is a medical guy from many years ago who said that women with this could, and I'm going to quote here, so I don't
Yeah,
get in trouble.
you made
Join-
sure Melampus owns this quote,
They
right?
need to... he urged them to join carnally with young and strong men.
What's carnally?
Well,
is
if
that
you've
next
got-
to the anal?
If you've got the belt,
Is that like the perineum zone?
yeah.
With a
They
belt?
were healed and they recovered their wits, according to the literature.
Told you
So
that,
nothing
witless.
like a good shag to get back on.
Witted.
That's what they used to
Your
think.
wits back. Was there a connection anywhere between that electrified
Well, I
old
could see.
fella and the
Yeah, they could connect.
It could be.
Yeah.
Well, even the Romans said in females, a violent disease also arises from the womb. So it was all about the womb in women. Because we've got to remember, when they cut open women and men, the only thing difference they could find inside
They
was
had
the womb.
innies.
And they found this thing and they didn't know what it was. They didn't, it
falling
was
all over the
It
place.
was all over the place. And so they just blamed that as being the problem for all women's ails. And they know how to
A
treat it.
migrating, confused, rheumatic womb.
Exactly. And so,
Uterus.
it's pretty spooky. And this was thought of. And mental health has a terrible history as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, have you seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Oh,
Yes.
Well, actually,
Frontal lobotomies.
That's still that's not.
Walter Freeman.
Whoa.
Still people do that,
Can I
man.
show this picture, or is it a bit
Yeah.
too gruesome?
Yeah, you
For the-
show us
all right.
what it is.
It's a frontal. This is a Freeman frontal lobotomy. Now, a frontal lobotomy is you actually get an ice pick,
Yeah.
and you move it. It's called transorbital lobotomy.
Yeah.
An ice pick, and you push it above the eye, and you crack the bone at the back of the orbitus, the back of the, and push it into the temporal lobe there, and you mish it around. And that's a treatment for mental health.
Sounds like a great
what does it
idea.
do to you?
I'd say yeah.
What does it do to
Give
you?
it a
Does
go.
it make you catatonic?
Yeah, it does. But if someone's like absolutely, and this is
Hysteria.
where the positivity. Yeah, they were absolutely nuts.
No
And-
wonder they go for the vitamin D into the uterus
Yeah,
first.
well, yeah,
if they
that
were the
was-
options, was that
Yeah.
around the same time? So look, you've either got a depressed uterus making you mad, like
No,
have an
this
orgasm or
was
two, or we'll stick an ice pick into your
1936 was
brain.
when Freeman did the first one. It did it happened up until the 1968.
Wow.
Was the last one performed.
And now they do it electrical.
They do electric, and they also use Thorazine, which is a drug that was invented in 1954, which calms people down.
Right.
So it's chemical
Yeah.
treatment.
Well, I'd
But-
rather a chemical straitjacket than a.
Ice pick in your
but,
brain.
but pre
What could go wrong?
thing, what you know what they did? These people were absolutely off the, and this used to improve them because they were catatonic, which is better than being, according to them, of course,
Yeah.
off the deep end, just completely non-functional. There were people that actually got better, strangely,
Well,
after this.
people complained less about them.
Because remember, the temporal lobe's only in mammals,
Yeah.
and it's responsible for speech. So that's why the one flew over the cuckoo's nest,
Yeah.
and it's responsible for forming new thoughts. Now, if you're forming new thoughts that are terrible, then a lobotomy, unfortunately, was a treatment that was considered partially useful back then.
It's true.
The only problem is they gave it to 12-year-olds and all
Oh
sorts
wow!
of things.
So shock therapy instead, Steve. Bit
Well, they
better?
gave both. They gave them shock therapy to knock them out for a few
But they
minutes.
still do shock therapy today.
Yeah, they do shock therapy today.
Yeah.
Yeah, electroconvulsive therapy. They also give them high dose insulin to put them in a coma, and that's a treatment too. So mental health has terrible history. And remember, this is only I was born in 1969 and 1968. He died in 1972 of cancer, Freeman. So. He was performing lobotomies up until then. They're still performed to this very day, not transorbitally, but they are
Yeah.
for
Wow.
people who are, really, really bad.
One flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Yeah.
But the problem is that if you are like one flew over the cuckoo's nest, and there's actually nothing wrong with you, you're just a smart ass.
Oh, look, it's just terrible. It really is, and mental health has a history of this sort of thing. And but there were tonics that could help you, that make you feel better. Do you want some of those?
Yeah, bring them.
Well, here's a good tonic. Here's
With
a good
a nice
tonic.
Arsenic,
Well, yeah,
Oh.
that's one of the ingredients, but let's get a bit more serious than that.
saccharin.
Chocolate coated. That's the bit
that?
I saw.
What did you say?
Chocolate coated.
Oh,
yum. I'll have
some.
it. I'll just lick the chocolate off it and put them back.
Or down, this is the treatment for you. Now I'll point it to the camera. That's the thing. You can see it's an actual bottle. Now I'll read the ingredients so as you can get a.
You read them out, Steve-o.
It's iron, which is of course gives you energy. Of course,
Okay.
it has arsenic, which stimulates your nerves,
Yeah.
kills you.
Yeah.
And strychnine. Now
And kills
strychnine
you.
is a famous nerve stimulant that was made famous in 1904 by the a then marathon runner who wasn't winning, and he had a glass of strychnine halfway through the race and then won.
Wow.
Because it stimulates your nerves from a crazy point. So
So what does it do to you?
It really peps you up.
Yeah, right.
It
So
peps
what's
you
the
up.
negatives?
Kills you.
You need
But
a
apart from
heroin
that,
cough to you need a heroin cough
you wanna
mix
win
to
a-
slow back down.
You
Yeah.
want to win an Olympic race?
Look, you
Might
know,
die.
Yeah.
People
but-
take that
I
gamble.
know they would.
We've talked about rheumatoid arthritis before, and I've got another treatment for you here.
Well, actually, hang on. Before you move on from that,
Oh,
wasn't
okay,
it
sure.
arsenic that killed Farlap? They gave him too much.
Oh yeah, that could be the case because there was something to kill Farlap. What was that?
Well, they used to give them.
I thought it
They
was a
used to give
bucket of
them
cold water.
medicine, and I believe that he had arsenic. And my understanding was, I don't know if this is conspiracy theory. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Is that they gave him too much, or they double dosed him, and that's actually what killed him. Some people obviously say it was foul play and it was done on purpose. Other people are saying no, it was just an accident.
Oh, it was something happened there. I know they give cobalt to horses, don't they? Because
Cobalt?
cobalt is banned.
Do you
for
know they
horses.
also wrap cobalt around nuclear bombs to improve their blast radius as well too?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, and it's the inside of B12.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. So yeah, if you've got the old rheumatoid arthritis, you can rub it with this stuff. Now this is radium. Now, does anyone know the story of radium? Radium is a
Well, no, tell us. It
radioactive
sounds like
element.
radiation.
Yeah.
Does everyone remember Madame Curie?
Yes.
Yes.
Who died of?
Radium poisoning.
You
but
knew
actually,
her, didn't you?
Yeah. She's a friend of mine.
He dated her back in the day.
She died
He
in
grabbed his belt.
1918, I think, but just after World War One. She was
Yeah.
instrumental in World War One. She used to carry around a radium
She's radical.
globe
Yeah.
to the front line to X-ray the people on the front line. That was one of her claims
Wow,
to fame,
that's
World War
amazing,
One.
huh?
But she also invented radiation therapy. She won the Nobel Prize for that, and then won a Nobel Prize for chemistry after that. So she's quite smart.
Yeah.
Her husband was squashed by a horse cart just for interest's sake.
Wow.
But anyway, this is radium, and what
That's sad.
radium does.
So how would it help?
Is that when you
How does it
moved in,
help?
Steve? You saw him get squished. You're like, I'm in here.
Yeah, I'm
grab
not
my
gonna-
belt.
Get my belt
Into a
on
whale.
and go.
Whale belt. You never know. Rheumatism it could be.
Well, this will cure your rheumatism.
So how?
It suppresses your immune system so much, your arthritis goes away.
That makes sense.
So
So is that how X-rays were fixing
Help-
acne
yep.
and that as well, just by
Yep.
taking away the redness and the suppress it in the immune system.
The X-rays for acne is a classic story from about 1920, where they X-rayed
God, he's
women's
got a good
faces.
memory.
Doesn't he?
I've got the paper here. I'll pull it out. Where they X-rayed patients for 15
Make him
minutes,
look good then.
and it killed the propionium bacterium acne, or the
Yeah.
cutie acne, which
So
is
the
what we call it.
radiation.
Sterilise the face.
Killed everything
Yeah,
else as
right.
well
Oh,
too.
don't worry, because there's no side effects of X-rays back
Yeah.
then. Forget
Yeah.
these side effects. They just blasted them for 15 minutes each side,
Yeah.
and the acne cleared up.
And this is where I love talking about these sorts of things to us that seem absolutely crazy now after we have the ability for the information and the truth to
Yeah,
come out. Now,
exactly.
Well, what's interesting is if you grab your phone at the moment and you actually go into your settings and have a look at radio frequency, it actually has warnings in there as well too. I was listening to a professor that actually did an address down at the University of Melbourne, and I can get the details for people if they're interested. Just talking about that we need to be aware of radio frequency, we need to be
Yeah.
aware of radiation. The funny thing is we say you wouldn't run around with radium in your pocket, and like they did
Well,
back
not
then.
now because we know
Well,
this.
we know,
eh?
but the problem is back then this was
perfect.
this was state of the art.
Perfect
Yep.
treatment.
This was
Yep.
a fantastic tool to be able to use.
And this is same technology with a different mode of action or
Yep.
a different mode of delivery. So it's
Yep.
no longer a cream called radium. It's no longer a Madame Curie having cocktails with Steve and his heroin parties.
But this is the thing as well too. This is why we need to question everything, and why we need to have oversight, and we need to have not progress just for the sake of progress. Something I was watching the other day, which I found fascinating, is actually a new book called "One Earth, One Humanity versus the 1%," and it's
Oh,
actually
yeah, that's clever.
And it's actually a lady by the name of Vandana Shiva. Vandana Shiva. I saw a fantastic interview with her talking about her new book and talking about the destruction of the Indian farm industry from Monsanto and the destruction of BT cotton. And she goes through and talks about all of the devastation that chemical crops have effectively had on the livelihood, on the soil, the water, the erosion. It's absolutely devastating. And she really puts forward, and she's very, very smart. She's a physicist. She's got degrees out the wazoo, and she puts forward a case in terms of, again, going back to nature. She's terribly concerned with the patenting of natural compounds such as seeds.
Yeah.
And allowing people to take control over natural, organic, intelligent. What does she call it? She uses words like a non-linear intelligence that's found inside plants. That you can look at it, you can patent it, but it doesn't mean that you understand it, and you don't have the right to take something from nature and patent it just
of course
because
not.
you can. So this is unfortunately what she says is happening with a lot of the 1%ers at the moment, is they're taking natural compounds and they're trying to dictate policy and life through patenting everything. So soon we're going to have to, I think a while ago we were talking about genetically modifying mosquitoes and releasing them into the wild.
Yeah.
They're talking about genetically modifying salmon and releasing it so that it can actually interact with wild salmon. And the problem with that being is if we get it wrong, we don't get a second chance
that's
to.
right, too.
We think we're really smart, and again, we are the smartest that we have actually been at any time in history. Well, some would argue that the ancient, some of the ancient, Atlantis and the Greeks have got technology that we've lost. So maybe we're not as smart as we think we are. But when we introduced things like the cane toads here in Queensland, we thought that was the best thing that we could possibly do. Now we're stuck with the cane toad problem that we cannot reverse. And in history, we've had many times as well too. These are the sorts of things that we require oversight and make sure that they don't just get pushed through an irreversible harm that could be done to the planet and our ecosystem.
Yeah.
And again, that book, go and have a look at it, and maybe have a look at her name and search up on YouTube some of the interviews that she's doing, because it's
Because it is
fascinating
one
stuff.
globe. Like, you can't think you can do things in an isolated compartment. It's like when we talk about the human body. You can't specialise in any part of the human body. It's one big holistic system. You can't influence one part without it affecting it. The globe is exactly the same. You can't go through and influence one part of it with policy and it won't have an effect everywhere.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, and this is where, it's very, very difficult to get an accord. I mean, even with regards to, removing plastics. I mean, we've done a really good job in Australia with removing a lot of that in terms of straws. I mean, there's certain things. But if you've got the biggest countries in the world, like China and or India, and I'm not picking on them, I'm just saying because of the size of the country,
Yeah.
it doesn't it's not that it doesn't matter what we do, but it's such a drop in the ocean that it's not going to have a meaningful impact. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, but it means that we need to get an accord. And this is what I'm saying is that, if you've got somebody making decisions in isolation,
that affecting the
entire
globe,
world,
the environment, the health, the microbes, the plants that live here.
Yeah.
Someone asked me the other day, what would I do to prep for the future knowing everything's weird? And I said 2 things, well, 3 things depending. Collect seeds. I said I'd collect heirloom seeds.
She did. This woman and went back and actually put those seeds back in where those Monsanto genetically
and I would
modified
actually, if
seeds
I don't
were.
have kids, I would actually be freezing sperm and eggs right now. Sperm and eggs frozen, ready before they all get fucked up with genetic engineered, and do the same thing with seeds. Because the sort of changes that are coming around and happening now, these things never, ever have ever happened to us in the history of man. We have no way of ever comparing anything of this stuff from the past, because what we're doing now is gene editing in humans that never been tested, never been controlled. No idea what's going to happen. And when they do those sort of manipulations, the first thing I say is you can't breed. Animal studies, they kill the animals at the end of it so they don't pass on this genetic changes.
Well, they won't.
If they're going to roll out this sort of stuff across humans, they need to be collecting sperm and eggs now before they're messed up, and collecting seeds from the plants before they were messed up.
Well, John said he's collecting sperm, so maybe someone else can collect the eggs.
He is. Oh, actually... No, I won't tell that joke.
All right. So I think those are the sorts of scary things, is that when you have people in power and authority, policy legislators, extremely wealthy people that have the ability to convince, sway public opinion to allow these things to be done.
Yeah.
Once the genie's out of the bottle, that's it. So it's taken years for this lady to go back and actually introduce heirloom seeds back into India with cotton. And she said what's interesting is that the economy where she's been doing this has significantly improved, because you're not having to buy seed every season. You're not having to use the chemical. And she said, and the idea and the understanding that these things are not working is coming through, and there's lots of lawsuits and all the rest of it. But unfortunately, certain individuals, and I'll let you discover who she's talking about, are taking these ideas and then transferring them into other countries as well too, where effectively they're being paid lots of money to pay off the governments to bring these things in, which is having a devastating effect on the economy. And the reasons why she's saying are absolutely insidious. But anyway, I'll let you look into that.
We big fans of broccoli sprouts and getting the glucosinolates. Man,
There's some cool stuff
we
there.
are really struggling to maintain a scalable supply of broccoli seeds that are not genetically modified seeds from Monsanto that have been souped up. Some of them come in, like the levels of actives are the good stuff that we look for, naturally might be about 2 to 10%. And these people come, we can make up 40%. And you're just like, that's not even natural. What is that? What is missing? What? Yeah, exactly. Cost of what to make that space up? So we really struggle. And the cost of heirloom seeds are getting so high that the cost of the genetically modified seeds and that owned by Monsanto are falling. So you get to that point where it's almost, as a business, you can't even justify it. And the problem is, as you go through distributors, they just make the decision on your behalf and say, look, man, that stuff's out of price, so we can't do it. It just changes. And then things continue. And like JFK, remember that thing? So 9 out of 10 Americans believed immediately after that the CIA murdered JFK. And then after a series of years, when the invention of words like conspiracy theory and the supply of all this information creates a lot of confusion, now no one in America is game enough to say that the CIA killed JFK, where immediately after it, 9 out of 10 Americans believe that to be true.
Yeah, they do believe
now
the
they're just like,
official
no, I don't want to say it because then I'll be labelled a conspiracy theorist.
And they might even say, look, I think there was more than one gunman. That's what they might say if they've listened, to the Oliver Stone movie as well too, which is also, again, depending on who you listen to, a controlled narrative. So, I mean, again, this is the problem is that, and again, it does sound
these things, it's only a couple of generations.
I know.
Like within a couple of generations, they can be things that we do on a daily basis and we have no idea why or how it came about, but it's a habit. Like that, the whole, we talk a lot about carbohydrates and we talk about the fat lobby and the sugar lobby and that sort of stuff. The cornflake story is bloody interesting because do you know where Kellogg's cornflakes come from? I didn't mean to kick you to get your attention. I was just readjusting my legs. And so it was a bit nice. Well, that was nice.
You're stroking my leg, Vince.
So with the... Give him some
Give me
cornflakes.
some corn.
Yeah, I was just saying, I need some cornflakes
gee.
Because what
yeah,
happened is they
not
had that
electric
theory
belt.
that men, meat-eating men, like warriors that want to shag stuff, and the eating of meat is going to improve your sexual prowess and your libido. The Kellogg's dudes invented, there's some kid, Kellogg, he wrote the newsletters for his local church mob after some lady spoke to God
Yeah, yeah.
about how bad meat is.
and how bad sex is
and how bad you don't want to be
If you-
playing with that
yeah.
devil's
Fornication.
joystick, Steve.
It was. Oh.
It's a devil's joystick, Steve. Let it go.
And the devil's dumplings. Let's not mention them.
I just bounced it. Oh, which were the dumplings?
Well,
The devil's dumplings.
women have the devil's dumplings, and men have the devil's
Devil's
joystick.
joystick.
Ah.
But they
What are
didn't
the
have
nuts?
joysticks back then.
I thought the dumplings might have been the nuts.
I don't know. They're kind of like.
Look like a little steamed wonton.
It does look like wontons.
So
This
the
is gonna
devil's
make
wontons. So what happens is you're either playing with devil's joysticks or jiggling around the devil's wontons,
Yeah.
or the devil's dumplings are looking at you with their smuggling peas. And then you're thinking, I've eaten too much meat. You're going to cop a hiding in your depressed uterus. So then young Kellogg dude decided that cornflakes for breakfast was going to save the world by suppressing everyone's libido. So today, people still have cornflakes for breakfast because breakfast's the most important meal of the
Fools.
day, so you don't go to hell by lunchtime.
Yeah, but you know why they did that?
No.
Because then they invented the belt to help you with. See, they've created the problem and the solution. So
He had a great solution.
And then, yeah.
I just love how he said that he and he became a doctor in the end too, John Kellogg.
Yeah.
Dr. John Kellogg. He and his wife kept separate bedrooms and adopted all their children. He said that sex with a wife was bad, but masturbation was even
Evil.
worse.
Yeah.
And he said self-pollution is a crime doubly abominable.
Self-pollution.
What's really
is that
funny
another
is
one
that-
again? So it's sex with your wife, practicing alone, and then self-pollution.
See, the funny
Self-pollution.
thing is that the understanding, and again, coming from a Christian point of view, absolutely wrong. It says better to marry than to burn with lust and desire. And you
Every
it's
sperm is
a
sacred.
good
I know
thing.
the song.
If you want to read an erotic novel, forget 50 Shades of Grey. Go and read Song of Solomon's.
Oh,
it is full on.
Really? What is this Song of Solomon?
Yeah, it talks about
Is it an audio book? I'll get the wife onto it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was the original 50 Shades of Grey. No way.
Really?
No way on God's green earth that is right. And in fact, that's the kind of sort of stuff I really rally against.
Well, he was a Seventh-day
bet you do.
Adventist, so that's mine.
No, but that doesn't speak for all Seventh-day Adventists as well too. The dude probably had a low sex drive, and his wife as well too. Didn't get it. Thought that there was a better way through works to be closer to God, which we all know our works are considered to be filthy rags. That's what it actually says in the Bible. So it doesn't matter what you do. It's about heart condition. That's why I get upset when I hear religiousness being said that that's a way to get closer to God. It's rubbish.
Well, he had 39 different symptoms of a person plagued with masturbation. You want to hear some of them?
Calluses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hairy
Blindness.
palms.
General infirmity, a defective development, mood swings, flickerness, bashfulness,
Flickerness.
boldness.
What's flickerness? That's flick it.
The blokes don't do the flickerness, do they? I've never seen blokes strumming the guitar strings.
That goes with the belt. You put it on. Flick it.
Flick the switch. Flick the switchedness.
But what about these ones? It gets
What?
worse.
Yeah.
Bad posture, stiff joints, fondness of spicy
joints.
foods,
Yeah,
acne, palpitations, and epilepsy. Was these guys? This guy was off with it. I mean, talk about making stuff up.
That's
But
cool.
he had a cure. You want to hear the treatments?
Cornflakes.
No, even
Oh,
worse.
a paddle.
For boys, he suggested threading silver wire through the foreskin to prevent erections and cause irritation. That's the second worst treatment. You want to hear the worst one?
What?
For women. The application of carbolic acid to the clitoris to burn it and discourage
Oh.
touching it.
Ow!
That's the quote. That's good old Mr. Dr.
I
Kellogg.
That's going to get you
Never
closer to
eat-
heaven, isn't it?
I'm never going to eat cornflakes ever again. Not that I do, but I'm never eating them again as a protest vote for.
I'm
you
going
know
to fuck
what?
him. I'm going to spite him. I'm going to make a big bowl of cornflakes in the morning. And I'm going to stick my devil's joystick in it and dip my steamed dumplings.
Yeah, and then take
Devil's
a picture
dumplings or
and put
devil's
it on his grave. You know
wontons.
what? That really upsets me. That kind of BS. It
Now,
really
honestly,
does.
why would God make something that is handy and feels good if it wasn't meant to be handled and feel good. Stop
Well,
looking
I
at
mean,
me. No eye contact to answer that question.
No, I'm not looking
No,
at it.
no.
You were straight to
It's
the-
just like, it's
No,
no explanation.
absolutely not.
All right, well,
And I think the funny thing is it's far more than just a physical act. I believe that there's a spiritual act to it as well too. That's why the two
Cornflake.
become one flesh. This is what it talks about.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I reject all that rubbish.
So look, if you're really feeling down and sick, I've got another tonic for you, man.
oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can't wait for
It's
this
one you
party.
drink. It's a drink. Okay, here we go.
Another drink. Radium.
Yep. Radium solution
For drinking.
Well, there you go.
You just have a bit after every meal,
Yeah.
and it cures anything.
How much of this stuff was sold? How many people were having
Loads of it.
radium?
You remember that this stuff glowed because it was an ionizing radiation. When it hit an atom, it left off a photon, which is light. So it glowed in the dark. So why wouldn't you drink it?
So it's kind of like Roger Ramjet's proton pills.
Yes.
But they were- wow.
Exactly.
And that gave him the strength of 20 men for 20
Atom
seconds.
bombs, wasn't
20 atom bombs for
Yeah,
20
yeah,
minutes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know-
So again, I see Roger Ramjet as the original
The-
steroid user, but anyway.
The weird fun, like
You seen his jaw?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, Madame
And I
Curie-
bet you he didn't need to use that belt
And he had
either.
no carbs.
No. Oh, hey, I love that guy. He's awesome. He's a hero.
Here's another irony thing. You know, Madame
Are
Curie
you
died
talking
of
that of
radiation.
iron or funny?
Well, it's
Right.
funny. It's a little bit
Queen-
funny. Well,
yeah.
it's a bit sad. But Madame Curie died of radiation poisoning. But what she actually died of was radiation that caused, believe it or not, pernicious anemia.
Oh, well.
Yeah, which we talked about last podcast.
Yeah.
Which causes incredible fatigue. In
Right.
and so she
Yeah.
had radium throughout her whole life that caused incredible fatigue. And that's why she suffered so badly with it in the later years.
What's really
What
interesting
did you
is
say
that.
before that story there's something funny?
Well, no, I
I think you meant funny, bizarre, not funny, haha.
It's
so
ironic
with
that it
with
sold
Chernobyl, have you guys watched the documentary on Chernobyl?
No, I got
It's-
bored.
Oh man, I loved it. I thought it was really,
lot of
really
people
good.
said that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it
I
talked
didn't
about
watch it either.
Chernobyl, obviously in Russia in 1986, I think it was. I can't
Three,
remember
I think
exactly.
it was.
No, it was after that.
After that, okay.
Yep. And it's amazing how many people actually were there. And some of those guys were digging out the nuclear waste, literally wearing nothing other than a pair of jocks.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of them were
Now,
completely
it's
naked
very
while they're
hot.
doing
I watched
it.
a
Some
fishing
people
show.
died,
Yeah.
and some people didn't. It fascinates me why
Yeah.
some people have a natural sort of ability. Even the guy that was there, the big idiot who made a lot of the decisions right at the very beginning, he lived until like well into like the 90s or even 2000s, I think it was.
Well, we used to-
Where other people dropped dead within 6 months.
Yeah, we used to think radiation was all bad, but we now know that people like the people who live out in country Australia have huge amounts of radiation naturally in the soil. Because remember, radium comes from uranium.
Yeah.
And uranium's in our soils everywhere
Right.
in Australia.
And
So-
what does it do to their life expectancy?
Absolutely nothing.
Right.
So they are tolerating certain amount of radiation. And what the thing it's most toxic for is like your thyroid. But you know, it's even low doses of radiation can be not so bad.
Sorry, I still can't not stop giggling because you said uranium, and I'm just a child.
Oh,
I just, but I do let that out.
okay, you do that.
Oh, God.
Carry on.
Yeah, so
Whatever the fuck you're talking about.
uranium is, is actually people can live with a little bit of uranium.
Oh,
And we need radiation. That's what we make our vitamin Ds and all that sort of stuff.
Did for the people, the airline hosties and all that sort of stuff, which probably there's a lot lesser than what there used to be.
You
Poor people
reminded
at
me.
Virgin, by the way, feel bad for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, when they're going up into that level, all the time, they're getting far more exposure to radiation.
Cosmic radiation, too.
Yeah.
Because of the Earth's atmosphere is not protecting them. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, the magnetic field is not as strong up there, and the magnetic field protects us from the solar wind or radiation or cosmic radiation. And we were talking about this last week, where the cosmic radiation comes in at the North Pole.
Yep, that's
And
where you can see
get
the lights. Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
So it protects from that. But if you're 33 to 35,000 feet in the air, there's more radiation.
So
up there.
is there a higher instance of disease from that for them?
Nothing's been found yet.
Okay, that's cool.
The only successful experiment was done in 1974 with the effects of altitude, and it was to confirm Einstein's theory of relativity.
Right.
Which
Time travel.
Now,
yes, time travel.
you mentioned Einstein, which is a nice segue. Well,
No, I got to do something first
okay,
about
you go for
Chernobyl
it.
quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
go for
Because I watched his fishing documentary where the dude went to Chernobyl hoping he'd find some freaky radioactive fish. They're all really weird and small. With stunted growth, not enhanced or mutated like you expect to see X-Men fish. But the interesting point of it is he took his Geiger counter there because when it hit a certain thing, he had to do the bolt.
Yeah.
At the whole time he was going fishing there, he never hit the levels that he hit on the aeroplane.
Yeah.
Heading over, he turned on the Geiger counter on the aeroplane, it all went off and he got in trouble. And then when he's over there, the whole time he was there, he never got to the Geiger counter, the level the aeroplane was on the way over. And I saw a similar documentary
super cool.
with Fukushima where they went through trying to get, and they almost had to go right into the thing to hit the same level of radiation that they hit on the aeroplane.
Wow.
Yeah.
Chernobyl, I've heard World Health Organization killed 1 million people. It was about 30 or 40 or so. Less than 100 people died during that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big.
But it was the
mass death
fallout after that, though, wasn't it? Because they were concerned about getting into the water table. They were
Well,
concerned
it did
about
make all
obviously.
these Hmong animals everywhere around further down the stream.
They killed them all. They
Yeah.
went through. So you got to watch the series. They
That's
actually went
right.
through and
Yeah,
they
I
killed
suppose they
everything. So
Yeah. So
But it was
Einstein.
So yeah, what was interesting with what you mentioned about Einstein, and this comes back to, I guess, full circle as far as censorship is concerned, because this is probably the thing that worries me about anything else. And there's a couple of ways that censorship can be done. The first one is through social pressure, not to put up views that are contrary to what I call the sheep with teeth. These are people that don't have their own opinions but follow what they hear and believe it and accept it's their own opinions because they want to be part of the crowd and they don't want to consider the alternative of not being part of the crowd. Isolation within any flock or with any group is effectively, shame and death. Like we're naturally adverse to being left out of the group because from, as you'd like to say, Steve, from factors, if you're left out of the group, you're on your own, you're going to get picked off by wolves and die. So, it's the same thing as well too. So people normally want to be involved in a group with other people, and that's why they'll go along with things that they don't necessarily agree with because they don't want to be isolated. Like what happened in Germany. Einstein's books, amongst many others, were the ones that were burnt. Now we're looking at the same. So I mean, again, people look at that and go, "Oh my gosh, book burning! This is absolutely terrible." But at the time, it was actually the youth that said that anything that is establishing itself against what we consider to be Nazi way of life,
Yeah.
which they don't forget, Nazi is a filthy, dirty word to us now. But back then, Nazism was
gentleman.
like going to save the world. It was like the
Anti-communism or something, wasn't
well,
it?
it was. And so, Karl Marx and all the rest of it. And I don't agree with communism, but I never believe in burning their books.
Yeah.
Let people have it. Let socialistic, let capitalistic, right wing, left wing. It doesn't matter. I mean, the ability to be able to take these ideas and actually discuss them, debate them, and then let society as a general rule determine where it wants to go. But once you've actually got people
Controlling information.
yeah, and that's what I'm really concerned about again in terms of where you go to get your information, and the amount of censorship that I'm seeing now is frightening. It's absolutely frightening. And people are going, "Where's the censorship happening?" If you're on social media, censorship is happening right now.
Oh, absolutely. And if you're only getting your information from one source, then you've censored yourself.
Well, the funny thing is,
So-
if you're not seeing censorship, maybe dig a little bit deeper and see what you can find.
Yeah, because you're just giving you're only looking at what you're given.
Well, dangerous ideas, and then there's straw man arguments. So, and again, I apologise to all my flat earth friends out there, and I love you, and I will not change the way I feel
you fell
about
for
you.
the red herring.
Well, I do not believe that the earth is flat, but I mean, again, what typically happens is straw man arguments can be used, going, you're a person that believes in flat earth.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, no, I don't.
No.
Oh, well, if you believe one conspiracy, you have to believe
You
them
all of them, yeah.
No. But the
Yeah.
interesting thing is that stuff like that is actually being left up, but the ones that are true are being ripped down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
Hard to find.
That's the stuff that you actually need to find, because if they're trying to hide it, it's because they don't want the curtain and the Wizard of Oz to be pulled back to
And
find
you
out
can
who's actually
prove if
pulling
it's right or wrong, and it's up to you. Like they don't have to decide what's right or wrong and what science they agree with and what they don't.
Did you know the Earth
So-
is not exactly perfectly round? You know, it's squashed.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's like
like
an egg.
flat, and it's on the back of a turtle.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's due to the centripetal force of the Earth spinning at about 1,000 miles an hour is calling an oblong shape of the Earth. So it's slightly squashed.
That's
The
an
miles,
amazing
by
turtle.
100 miles.
Yeah, the turtle could hold all that.
Sorry?
The turtle.
Yeah, mate, he's got big, strong legs. He can hold the Earth.
Yeah, no.
Did you know Einstein also fell for peer pressure?
Did he?
In general relativity, he predicted that the universe was expanding at an accelerated rate. Like it was going apart.
It's slowing down.
Well, he thought it was accelerated. This was general relativity, and he said, "No, it's static according to Newton." So he went, "All right, I'll add a constant into my formula, which calls the universe static."
Yeah, wow.
And it was his biggest failure of all time.
Huh.
And he did that out of peer pressure.
Wow.
And it's
Isn't
called
that
the
interesting?
cosmological content. And now we know, of course, it's expanding. The universe is expanding, and it's accelerating by
So you believe that the Earth is still the universe is still expanding in the way
Yeah,
that it
it
goes
is.
out? Oh, I thought it was slowing down, Steve.
No, it's speeding up because of dark energy.
Okay.
74% of the universe matter is made up of dark energy. Now, they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But you can observe this by, it was done by Hubble in 1929, was the first guy to observe the expanding universe.
Cool.
when he got his big telescope and looked it up to the sky and saw a galaxy there and measured how far it was away and
What he
worked
got
out.
in his tape measure?
Yeah, got his tape measure. Well, there's things like if you know how far a light bulb is away,
Yeah.
supernovas are measurements to how far galaxies are away. So you can measure how far galaxies are away. And of course, the older they are, the further they are
How
away.
fast is it moving out?
Oh, faster than the speed of light.
So how can we see anything?
Well, when it goes,
Because if we look at out, if I look out to
the-
see stars and stuff,
Yeah.
it's the light from those stars coming back to me.
Yeah.
If they're moving that way faster than the light's coming this way, how can I see them?
Because
speed of
you're
light's
seeing where it
constant.
was
Yeah, you're seeing where it
thousands
was.
and thousands of
And
years
also, even if something is like if a car's driving, okay, at 100 kilometres an hour, the speed of light's not going 100 plus, the speed of light. It's going at the speed of light because it's a constant.
Yeah.
The speed of light's constant. But also, eventually, when the universe is gone so far away, you won't be able to see anything else in the sky.
So if the speed of light throws a tennis ball in the air, anyway,
It's the speed of light's constant. It stays at 300,000 metres per second. So it's just constant.
So the light
It's a
from
universe-
from the sun that we get
Yeah.
is 8 minutes old?
8 minutes old.
Yeah.
The nearest
still
star,
quite
Alpha
warm.
Centauri, is 4.5 years. Nearest galaxy is about I don't know how, but that's M31. That's it's a few million light years away.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and when you look at Hubble, hey, here's something to Google, guys. Hubble Deep Space Photograph. You can see galaxies that are 13 billion light years away. And there looks like at the start of the universe back then. But photons weren't made at the very start of the universe. It was only about 300,000 years after the formation.
Steve was
how
there when it was
old
created.
are you?
Yeah, it's
Steve?
really old.
Yeah, sorry, go off topic there.
Yeah,
Physics.
he was with
Someone
God. He
use
was
an
like,
Einstein.
oh, you just do a little bit this,
Yeah.
do a little bit
Don't
that.
Take-
have
take
my
Sunday
physics
off.
Yeah. Don't take Sunday off.
Oh, wow.
Nice one. Oh, well, guys, are we wrapping it there?
Oh, absolutely.
Excellent. Look, I've got to get off and grab a belt anyway. So, look, thanks very much.
I've got some batteries.
Do you?
That's all you get.
I'll get in there. I'm 51. I think it's powered into PowerPoint.
Where do
I
the
think.
batteries go? Yeah, anyway. So,
Depressed prostate.
well, that's it from me.
Oh, that's great.
I'm
I'm
out
glad.
too.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
I'm going to just keep speaking shit for a while.
Well, thanks, guys. And we'll be back with more, maybe on a maybe a more defined topic next
So that was
week.
our 250th episode.
Well,
we have not
wow.
got our shit together at all yet, have we?
You know what? Like, I mean, you can be prim and proper and boring, and it sounds like, or you can just, share
it
some
up as you
really
go.
cool stuff. Well, I mean, the interesting thing is, as far as health and science and that is concerned, is that there's some really cool stuff out there.
Yeah.
And what we learn from history is that we don't learn from history. We need to stop.
Yeah.
We need to really look and question everything and not just get our information from one source and challenge our beliefs. The problem is that's so hard. You need to suspend what you think you know. And I understand that debate and arguments are healthy, but if it's done in a productive way that leaves the other person whole, that's what I'm afraid of, because there's no genuine discussion. It's all hate mongering.
What I want to challenge everyone out there to do is parallel thinking. The smartest person in the room is not the most emotional person. He's not the person that's actually stacked one argument and got the best one-liners or the best collection of memes.
Damn.
The smartest person in the room is the person that's capable of picking any one topic or agenda associated with a topic and having an abundance of information about that you can all discuss the same thing at the same time, and then determine who knows the most about it, gather all the data, pick a new topic, all discuss that, and then together come up with a very smart decision based on all the collection of the data, not by going by who's got the best one-liners, who's the best smartass, who's the best arguer, who's the most emotional, who hates the idea the most because they're an expert. That's where arguing, debate just falls down. Parallel thinking is the way to go, where we get experts all discussing one thing. If you're an expert and you've got nothing to contribute about a point of view, then you're not an expert. You're biased in one point of view. So everyone needs to go through and understand both sides of the story and all the different angles to come from. Otherwise, you're not entitled to be involved in the discussion. That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, I think, Matt, you can be an expert in a certain area, but at least understand and listen to the people that are coming from a different viewpoint to understand why they're coming from
But
it.
you can't be an expert in one point of view unless you've actually investigated the full scenario. So otherwise you're just biased and you've got an emotional argument. Otherwise you don't know. That's not an investigation into discovery. It's actually you arguing your opinion. So that's why it's important to actually be able to argue against yourself. If you haven't argued against yourself, through before you made your decision, then you've come up with a decision based on biased information and maybe getting all your information from one source, or maybe you're just repeating someone's clever quotes or sharing memes that someone did.
I think consistently testing a hypothesis against information that comes in as well too. I mean, again, that comes down to the fact that you believe that you've actually found the truth. But even if you do, and I guess this is a starting point, a lot of people won't even hear anything outside of that because they would consider it to be modern day heresy, which is what we get so upset about with the old religions of the day, is because anything that was brought as contrary to the control that was done through a system was rubbished, and you were effectively burnt at the stake. Now, I see exactly the same thing happening today, but through social media and through propaganda, and people don't know that they're actually in the church of the modern day. And any of these heretics that are on the outlines are being burnt at the stake.
Yeah.
It's wrong, but we got to break that model.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down through love and acceptance. And I know this is all very touchy-feely. And respect. But, just because you disagree with somebody doesn't mean you have to hate them. But
Drop the
unfortunately,
ego.
this is what's happening at the moment.
It's in politics. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's absolutely everywhere.
Politics is just a shambles at the moment.
We need more Steve-O's cough medicine style parties, and just the
Invite
conversation that's going to come from that.
Yeah.
It's going to be phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. There's some
Phenomenal.
All right.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
Done.
Thank you. See ya.
See you.
All right.
Bye. What's that?
Well, you guys say it.
You've only got two
Not
cameras
now.
on.
We've
you.
got
mean?
cameras
Yeah.
everywhere. Remind me later.
To
Okay.
remind you to say what?
The most horrendous joke I've ever known.
Oh, jeez. Gives me shivers just thinking about how
I
bad
saw
that.
that. Did you see him? My phone.
Yeah, is it? And he's dancing, and it's like,
fucking love
okay.
that show. You got that on camera. You got that on 3 cameras.
Yeah.
Can I have that? Just that.
You
Just
know,
that little.
Yeah. You
I
she's a
hate
pizza.
that movie.
Okay, so I downloaded that and
She
Shit! Get a pay hood!